Thank you, Ms. Horia. So let us go ahead. I understand that I have about an hour time
Yes, sir.
to
Yes, sir.
yeah. So let us see. So I'm very glad. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Bisnoth Datta for contacting me and then inviting me to give this talk on ontologies for program analysis. There are actually very few events around ontologies that are happening in the country, and I'm very happy that ISI Bangalore has taken this initiative to organize a international workshop on semantic techniques and technologies for data and knowledge engineering. It's a very good initiative. I wish you all great success. So we have been working on this semantic technologies for some time. So I would like to share some of my recent experience with a PhD student of mine, Dilip Kumar. So that's why this title, I mean, here it says Dilip Kumar. He is jointly, he is a PhD student of mine, jointly guided by myself and Dr. Rupesh Nasri. So our work is on applying ontologies for program analysis. So I would like to share this information. So let's go ahead. So I'm kind of assuming that since you participants have been in the workshop, you already have some background idea about ontology. So I will kind of assume that I can go straight into applications of for program analysis. Okay. So this ontology based software engineering in general is a very nascent area. It's a very new area. So the International Conference in Software Engineering has just started in the 2020 edition, a knowledge graph for software engineering kind of workshop. So it's a very upcoming area. So what exactly is program analysis? So when we have so programs are something which we have to deal with. Computer science people have to deal with every day in and out, day out. So and writing programs is not a easy task. There are a lot of issues and things like that. So we need to we often want to analyze our own programs and then figure out as to what is happening in the program, because sometimes the program does not behave exactly in the way that we intended it to be behaving. Anyway, feel free to stop me and then ask me any questions if you have. So, and I would appreciate if a few of you can turn on your videos so that I will be able to watch you while I am talking. It will be very good. I hear that there are a lot of participants, but I request some of you to kind of switch on your videos. Thank you. Um, Okay, so these are, so we're largely in this talk, we are concerned about properties of programs at compile time. So, for example, this is the, kind of things that, what is the state information? What are the reaching definitions? That means, let's say, you have a variable and then it has been declared at one place, and then what are all the places it is reaching, right? So sometimes this information is very valuable because you may assume that certain variable is not present here, and then you may actually go ahead trying to use it as a local variable or something like that, in which case you will actually get into problems. For example, suppose you really have put a global variable in a C program context, and then forgot that that variable has been declared as a global variable, and then start using it as a local variable, in which case you should be warned, because the reach of that global variable is through your function also. So such things can all be found out at compile time, and then points to analysis can also be done. Like if you have pointers, then which pointer is pointing to what, and then what is the kind of graph of pointing, to the extent that is possible at the compile time. So so this kind of static analysis, this is called static analysis. Static analysis is is done through compiler frameworks, and it's kind of very useful, and it has its applications in various things like code optimization, register location, parallelization, bug finding, etc. Many things it can be used once you do a static analysis of the program. So let's see how we can bring in ontologies into the picture. You might actually be wondering as to how all this is connected with ontologies and all that. So let me bring that connections and then see how much you can appreciate that. Okay. So regarding program analysis, the initial approaches that were tried were actually imperative specifications. So okay, so that means if you want to analyze a program, so you're kind of asked. There are these compiler infrastructures like Clang and ROS. So on those would provide certain API, application program interfaces, and then using which then the person who is intending to analyze a target program, okay, needs to write a program, make use of these APIs, and then analyze the actual target program. So this was the kind of approach in the imperative way of specifying as to what has to be analyzed, right? So this obviously is a time-consuming task, because you have to write a program in order to analyze a target program, and it's kind of prone to errors and things like that, and there are a lot of issues, things like that. So the other approach that was tried was the declarative, specification of the program analysis, right? So there are, so just like SQL is a for example, SQL is a declarative language, right? In that similar spirit, can you use declarative approach for kind of specifying as to be what is to be analyzed in your target program? So this was also was tried, and then there has been some improvement in productivity and with comparable experience performance with the compared to imperative approach. But then the whole thing was that in all these approaches there is kind of no standardization of the semantic model for specifying an analysis. So the specification of an analysis was actually kind of very much tied to the compiler infrastructure on which you are working. It cannot be portable. So it is in some kind of a proprietary format of that particular compiler infrastructure. And then there is no standardization of the model that is being followed for specifying the and also after you do the analysis you get certain results. So can we store those results in certain standard format, so that one analysis can actually take off from another analysis. Suppose you do one kind of analysis and then you want to follow it up with a different kind of analysis, in which case the second analysis should be able to make use of the results of the first analysis. For that, there should be a common representation mechanism for representing the results of this analysis also. So all these things were actually hindrances for integration of the various systems. And then this is another very, very important aspect, was that it was kind of very difficult to integrate any knowledge from outside of the program. For example, you want to say, suppose the program is making use of a particular library, and you have, as a developer, you have certain knowledge about that particular library as to what these various functions are, useful for, or whatever. What are the conditions they expect, or things like that. So you want to, let's say, you want to convey that knowledge. So as an input, okay. So all this was difficult in the current approaches for program analysis using either imperative or declarative styles of specification. So this is the scenario, and then we in our group raised this question: Can the usage of ontologies provide a solution to these drawbacks? And then we found out that not much work is going on in this particular field, And then we started looking around, and then then we found out that, to our actually pleasant surprise, that in 2016 there was a paper in the European Conference on Object-Oriented Programming called PATO, Program Analysis through Ontologies. So this was one of the first. So this is a paper by a Chinese group of researchers, and they have represented C programs as triples. Okay, and then they were doing analysis using Prolog. Okay, and then followed by that. I mean, this approach. I mean, this piece of work was followed up by another work called Code Ontology, which appeared in International Semantic Web Conference in 2017. They have kind of tried to do similar thing as what Pato did for C programs. They wanted to do for Java programs. So Java programs as triples, and then analysis was being done using Sparkle. So then my student, along with us, we proposed this framework called Opal, which is ontology-based program analysis. And what we did was to kind of build on top of these frameworks right now, and then actually introduce new elements into this whole scenario, and then be able to improve the state of the art in this particular program analysis approach. So we will focus on this Pato and Opal frameworks in the rest of the talk. So here is the block diagram that kind of discusses as to what this Pato is doing. So I hope you are able to read this thing. Yeah, good. So I'm slightly zooming it up so that you can watch it carefully. So here is the overall approach that was proposed by these people. So we have the original program here, and then they propose what is called an ontology translator, using which the original program. So in general, overall idea here is that the target program is going to be represented as a knowledge base, an ontology based knowledge base. So a graph is going to come up. Okay, and then so they envisaged that in addition to the original program, other knowledge about libraries and other domain knowledge can also be put into the knowledge base. Of course, though they were not very clear and then specific, and then they were not able to provide solutions for this, but they concentrate on giving ontology translator, and then converted the given program into a ontology knowledge graph. Okay, ontology based knowledge base. So once this knowledge base has been created, the idea is that we can use first of all, we can use a lot of reasoning tools, and then kind of make use of the existing tuples, and then reintroduce some more triples into the thing. So that means you can update the knowledge graph using reasoning, and then once the reasoning is done, then you can also query this entire knowledge graph, and then get certain answers, so that the analysis tools can actually draw some useful inferences from that thing. So this knowledge utilization will happen through this program analysis tools. So this is the overall kind of vision that was proposed by this particular paper. And we also kind of built on this thing by actually making the kind of knowledge graph that can get represented much more sophisticated, as we will I'll show you as we go along. Okay, so that's the so this C ontology was proposed by so they call it a C ontology, and it's available here. For example, you can take a look at that. So it is proposed by this Chinese group in ECOP 2016, and then basically the thing is that they use the terminology from the ANSI C manual. So the ANSI C standard was taken, and then all the terms have been picked up and then converted into concepts and then appropriate properties, etc. So this C ontology has, it's a very big ontology. It has 178 concepts and 68 properties. So let's see. I'll show you some examples of that. So for example, they have the concept of C program, and then that has several sub-concepts like expressions, statements, variables, types, etc. All of these things are specific concepts there in your ontology, in the C ontology. Then if you go a little deeper into this declaration, for example, declaration is one of the concepts, sub-concepts of C program. Then if you go deeper, you get array declarations, function declarations, and then various other variable declarations, etc. All the various declarations are captured as subclasses of this particular class. And then if you go a little deeper, then you have this expression, and then various kinds of expressions have been captured. And so you should not be surprised that the names sound very familiar because they are meant to be. They are all actually taken from ANSI C standard, and that's what right. And then moving on, we have statement, for example, is a class, and then for that you have various kinds of statements. So the iterative statements, and then um, all these jump statements, various iterative statements like do while statement, for statement, while statement. These are all become subclasses of the statement class. Okay, so the statement concept is there. Then coming to properties, they have a lot of, in fact, they have 168 object, various kinds of properties. So they connect, for example, if you focus on here, the highlighted ones, if there is a for statement, then that has to have an increment expression, and it has to have an initializer expression, and it has to have a test expression, etc. So these properties will connect one for statement to its corresponding expressions, like that. So they have object properties. So there are lots of these object properties that have been proposed. And then so basically what they have done was to kind of propose the entire vocabulary, okay, a huge set of vocabulary using which you can take a specific C program and then actually convert that into a triples. Okay, so if you're so I think people might have been talking about T box and A box in ontologies for you. So this ontology is the T box, and then when you take a specific program and then convert that into triples, then you get a specific A box. Okay, so that A box and the generic C ontology, which is proposed by these people, is the T box, and the specific program converted into triples is the A box. Together is the knowledge base. Okay, so let me proceed now. Are there any questions? So how do we generate the individuals of this particular knowledge base? That's what I was asking. So the knowledge base, the C ontology is the T box. So the A box has to be generated. How do you generate? So these individuals are generated through the actual program that you want to analyze. So the target program, there is a small C program. So you will take up that, and then so I will show you an example in that. So a namespace can be assigned to every C program file, and then the elements of that particular program are going to be given URIs in that namespace, and then you can make convert the program into triples. So I will show you some specific examples. So here is a C program, and this one has been converted into triples. So this we call them as program triples. So program triples are there. Okay. So So I will give you a few minutes to kind of go through this thing. So here is the C program. Oops, I think I have to be careful with the slides. Yeah, you're able to read it? You're able to read it comfortably? Do you want me to?
Yes, sir. Comfortably, you can read it.
Okay, good. Yeah, so this is the some 15 line program, which basically is declaring certain variables like size, int IP1, IP2, C equals so and so, opening a file, and then scanning this IP1, IP2, input 1, input 2, and then it has a statement condition, and then it is trying to do something, and then it's trying to print something. And we will later on use this example to kind of check whether it has any divide by zero bugs. You can probably guess that there is something like that happening here. Now, if you take a specific, so this specific program, actually you might wonder, actually, okay, so let me first explain this to you. So for example, line 4 variable. So line 4 variable here is this line 4 variable. Okay, so each of these variables is going to be given a URI. So file is the prefix for that, and this line 4 var is the name for that particular entity that is occurring here. And okay, then we have a lot of information about that. It's of a type C variable declaration, and then it has a base type, which is a long integer, and the name of the particular variable is size, etc. All these pieces of information are all generated and then stored as triples. So like that, this triple set is incomplete. So you can see dot 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 here. So this thing gets converted into a large number of triples. So fortunately, we don't have to kind of convert these triples manually. We can have a appropriate ontology translator linked to the compiler infrastructure, which will then convert this entire thing into this sequence of triples. And this sequence of triples is the knowledge graph that we are talking about. Okay, so now you can see this in this knowledge graph that we are talking about. Some of the entities have this file prefix, whereas some of them have the C prefix. So that means this particular term comes from the C ontology. Okay, so C ontology terms. So for example, this is a C function declaration. So this is a class name from the C ontology. So several expression statement is a class name from the C ontology, like that. And then we also, of course, use RDF and then RDFS if necessary, and things like that. And then this is the local local name for file is the local name for this particular terms that we are introducing in this particular thing. So this whole program, any program can actually be converted into a bunch of triples and then be converted into a knowledge graph. That is the idea. And then, of course, you may take different programs and convert them into knowledge base, but then the C ontology remains the same. The T box is the same. Okay, so the A boxes will keep changing. So you'll get different. Each program contributes to a different kind of knowledge base. Okay, so I hope that these points are clear as of now. Let me proceed. So now what is the Opal framework doing here? So the C ontology kind of represent the syntax information of C programs. So what we did was to kind of propose this Opal in which we extend the Pato framework to actually add a lot of semantic information. So we found out that semantic information is very much required for doing more sophisticated static analysis. Okay, so what we did was to add the ability to represent control flow information, and also what we call as a static trace information. The static trace information is very useful piece of knowledge, using which we can do a lot of very detailed analysis, like what is called path sensitive analysis of a program. So in order to capture in order to add this particular knowledge, we propose what is called a program analysis ontology, and then bring in new terms into this program analysis ontology. And then, so this work has actually appeared in Software Program Practice and Experience recently. Okay, and then because this additions have been done, we're able to model and then store semantic information, and then this semantic information will be kind of reused in several client analysis. And then one more thing that we did was to kind of trying to use the same kind of framework for even representing the analysis to be done on a target program. So if you want to do a analysis on a particular program, what is the specific analysis that you want to do? So that also has to be represented, right? So even that we are kind of representing in RDF actually. So I'll show you those details as we go along. Okay, so first of all, we'll start with control flow graph. This is a very simple one. So in order to capture the control flow graph knowledge into the knowledge base, we specifically add these object properties, additional object properties like begin execution, next statement, if true statement, false statement, etc. So let me take an example. So in this example, the same example, you can see that this is the only place where there is an if statement. So line 11. If there's statement, so if this condition is true, the program will go through this. If the condition is false, the program will exit. Okay, so that being the case, so we can see that the control graph is like this. So it starts with line 4 and then goes on like this, line 8, line 9, 10. At 11, if it is true, it will go through 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. If it is false, it will go through this. So that is the control flow of this particular simple graph. So in order to represent this, what we did was convert that into triples. So for most of the times, it will say that this particular statement has next statement like this. Okay, like that. So for the line 11, we introduced, if it is a true condition, then it is line 12. If it is false, then it is line 18, like that. So in order to capture the control flow, we introduce this program analysis ontology terms called next statement and if true statement, if false statement, etc. Then using which we are able to capture this control flow graph. Okay, so this should be easy to understand. Okay, now let's move on to static trace. What is static trace? Static trace is something which is very interesting. So you want to kind of capture the state information about various variables, okay, in every program path that the program possibly can take. See, notice one thing that here, that we are not executing the program. We are doing a static analysis of the program. So when you come to a branch statement, we kind of assume that that particular branch statement either could be true or false. And then we kind of go through two different paths. So in both paths, we will analyze the program and then try to find out what can be inferred about the various variables that are present in that particular program in each of these paths. So we kind of explore every program path in each of these functions and then process those statements to figure out as to what is the information that we can extract about the variables. Okay, so again, let me show you an example. In the same example, for example, for the scalar variable, okay, this is the general way we can, the abstract way we can represent this particular information for scalar variables will be like this. So what is the variable ID? What is the ID of the variable? And what is the statement after which we are trying to get the state information about that variable? And what is the path through which we have come to that particular statement? So that means path means it is a sequence of conditions which are assumed to be true in order for you to reach that particular statement. So what is that path? And then what is the value that is known about that particular variable right now? And what is the comparison relation? Is it equal to 5 or greater than 5 or less than something, etc., you will be able to capture that. For example, if you take IP1 is this variable. Okay, this IP1 after line 15, what happens to it? So IP1 at line 15. So line 15 means we have come through a program path where the condition on 11 is true. Then it's equal to unknown, because we really don't know what is IP1 is, because it's a input variable. Okay, so that's the kind of state information that we can capture. Now, in a similar way, for example, variable C here, variable C has value 2 here, and if you go through this thing and then if the condition is true, then it will have value 4. So the same information can be represented now. The C variable C, after line 15, having gone through this program path, equals 4. So like this, we can capture very detailed status information about the known knowledge about various variables. And then of course, this is kind of routinely done in static analysis tools. But what we have done was to kind of ontologize this thing. So this whole thing is now represented in an ontology. Okay, so the static trace is stored again as triples using the program analysis ontology. So we use the concepts called variable state, the program path, and then since the program path is a sequence of conditions along with some assumed Boolean values, etc., we use the RDF list format for doing that. And then there's something called program point. What is the it identifies the statement in a particular path, where we are actually carrying the information. So notice one thing, that a statement can be reached several times in a program path. If you're in a loop, for example, you will be coming to the same point several times. Okay, so this entire thing is again now translated into a knowledge graph. Okay, so we use those. I'll show you the object properties that we use in order to do that. Okay, so here is the graph. So this graph, again, we are using this thing. Let me take some, okay, specifically. So variable T and IP1 are actually translated. If you, the state information about those two things after the line 15 is represented in this particular graph. So if you take variable T, for example, so it says that these are dummy variable. What are called, certain placeholder variables that we use, entities we use in order to say that this state information about this particular thing is captured at a particular program point. And the program point itself is a sequence of conditions. And so we'll come to that later. So at this particular program point, what is the state information? So what is the variable? The variable is T, and it has what is its relation, and it's unknown. What is the value, etc. So this information, in a similar way for IP1, we will capture. So this entire thing is at a particular program point. So and that particular program point itself is a sequence of program conditions, so branch conditions, and that is represented as a list, an RDF list. Okay, so this one, node 1 has a condition, and then that condition is true. Okay, and the name of the condition is this line 11 condition, and it is assumed to be true, and so that is the program path, and in that program path, this particular variable is having this information, this variable has this information, etc. We capture that in entire thing in knowledge graph. So notice one thing, none of these things is actually done manually, right? So we do not bother about how it looks like it's very granular, very detailed and all that. It is, yes, it is like that, but this is all done by tools. Okay. So this entire triples are all generated by tools, so that we have exact information about the variables at every assumed program path. Okay, so now that we have all these ingredients into place, we will let me explain the intuition about how we specify the analysis itself. Okay, so you can imagine this expanded kind of control graph of the particular program. Okay, so the program starts. Imagine it starts executing, and so it goes through certain paths, certain sequence of statements, and then it takes a branching because there's a condition. So it goes through those two branches, and then again you may encounter some other branch. So you get a big tree-like execution thing. We're actually not executing, but we are doing a static analysis. So we will assume that this is a true. So we go like this, we assume that is false, we go like this, etc. We can blow up the entire assumed execution into a big graph. Now, so in this particular big graph, we actually want to kind of specify certain positions where certain things have to be checked. Okay, that's what typical static analysis will do. Okay, like for example, let's take the example that I want to do a divides by zero check. Okay, is there any expression where a division by zero is occurring? So something like that we want to, let's say, check. Okay, so you may want to say that, okay, look at all those points in this particular large graph, like flow graph, where certain conditions are meeting, saying that, okay, there is a division operation being used, and then it has this particular divisor and dividend, etc. There, so capture that particular situation and then do a check there. So this entire thing we can specify. So in order to specify this, we again introduce certain Sparkle based specifications. Okay, so let me illustrate that with an example because that will be easier. So let's look at this one. Okay. So here is the specification. So triples for divide by zero analysis specification. Again, this will be converted into space. So let's say this is some specification. Okay, this is an analysis specification. There will be a bunch of these specifications. So this particular specification has this class called SC, so specific specification class, and the specification class has a left-hand side, which is a expression of type Sparkle type expression, and I will show you what that expressions do. So this Sparkle expression, as you probably know now, by now you have been hearing about Sparkle, etc. Sparkle is a query language using which you can specify patterns and then catch hold of the specific points in the graph which meet those conditions. Okay, so in this case, for example, because we are interested in divide by zero, we can give a Sparkle query which will check what are the places where a division operation is being used and what are the variables involved in that, and give me those variables. So that kind of a specification we can do. So it one stroke with one Sparkle query, you are able to capture all the places where a division operation is possibly occurring. And then with this specification, you are saying that, okay, pick up all those points and then check, translate that into, is this value equal to zero or not? So that kind of a specification we can do. So I will not go into the detail about this particular Sparkle query. I mean, later on you can do that. So this Sparkle query is exactly doing that. So what are those divisors and divisor type, and then get me the entire. So this entire Sparkle query is actually given here as the value of the left hand side, and then you can basically make use of this specification in order to pinpoint all those points in the control flow graph where certain checks have to be performed. Okay, so with this, we have got all the ingredients into the place. So here is now the overall architecture of this entire system. So this is very interesting. So all these violet boxes that are there, these colored boxes that are there, they actually represent the various pieces of knowledge actually. And the white boxes are the ones that are the programs agents which will work on those things. So let me show you this. I think expand a little bit and then show you. So this is the Opal system architecture. So we start with taking the C program and then send it to the Pato system so that we get the program triples. Once you get the program triples, okay, so this entire thing that is in the red border is the Opal system. Okay. So the Opal system is going to first do a control flow analysis of the program. So it will extract control flow graphs, control flow triples. So it will then generate control flow triples and then represent them using program analysis ontology in RDF. So this is a RDF, bunch of RDF triples. And then this program triples, along with this control flow triples, will be together stored. And then these things are fed to an agent called a propagate agent. What this propagate agent actually, this is the heart of the system. So this propagate agent is the one that is actually generating all the static trace triples. Okay. So it kind of infers the state information by propagating the currently known state information through various steps of the program. So suppose you are at a particular statement. So regarding the variables, you have certain knowledge. So now, depending on the nature of that particular statement, you will then be able to further infer as to what should be the variables, what should be the values of the variables. For example, if it is an assignment statement, which is assigning a particular value for a particular variable, then only in the next state information that particular variable's value is going to change. Nothing else is going to change like that. So you can propagate the known knowledge at a particular information at a particular point to the next point in the program. That's what the propagate agent does. And in order to help the propagate agent do all this task, we have specific rules of semantic inference that have to be applied depending on the various types of statements that it encounters. So this is again a knowledge base. This is handcrafted knowledge base, which captures as to what these are Jena RDF forward chaining rules, which captures the knowledge as to how we can propagate certain information that is present at about state variables through a particular statement. Okay, so these are a small bunch of rules using which the propagate agent is now going to infer a lot of triples about the specific program that we have. So now we get what is called a consolidated program triples, which has all these program triples, control flow triples, and the static trace triples, all of them together at one place. And then we do a sanity check on this particular thing. So there are certain program analysis axioms, OWL axioms that we give to the OWL reasoner, so that this will be, since this may potentially have external knowledge also. So for example, let's say we have certain library usage knowledge. Okay, so even that we can actually send it through the program agent, and then they will all come into the consolidated. Since we have knowledge from diverse sources consolidated to one place, we do a sanity check on that using a OWL reasoner. And once we have all that, there is a check agent which will actually do something interesting with these things. This is the one that is actually carrying out the specific analysis, actual analysis to be done. So till so far, this is the knowledge acquisition, whereas this one is actually utilizing that knowledge and then actually picking up the analysis that is supposed to be done. Okay, this is the analysis specification. So this, for example, might be saying that you do a divides by 0 check, or it might be saying that okay, you check whether all the for loops are in a particular canonical form, a canonical canonical loop analysis it's called. So like that, it may specify certain thing. And notice that this specification also happens in program analysis RDF triples. So this check agent is going to kind of pick up this program analysis specification as required, and then consult this entire knowledge base in order to generate as to what are the constraints that has to be satisfied for that program analysis to be correct. Okay, and then we use this the generated constraints actually are fed to a SMT solver, and based on the solver we get the actual analysis output. So that's the overall architecture of the system. I can pause here for a while to take any questions that you may have. So you might be wondering actually where exactly is the ontologist playing a role. So in fact, in all of these things, ontologies are playing a role, because this is the first thing is this C ontology. Using C ontology, we are converting programs into program tuples, and then using program analysis ontology, we are going to convert that into control flow tuples, etc. And then we are doing a static analysis through an agent, and then all those tuples will form a consolidated knowledge base, and that knowledge base is what is being used by the check agent in order to generate check certain constraints as required by the analysis. Okay, so let me show you an example to further propagate that. So this is what all I talked. So to be more specific, the program agent is taking input tuples and control flow tuples and then generating static flow tuples. So it uses rules, as I said, semantic extraction rules. Okay. So say here is an example, a simple rule, which is actually one of the rules that it uses. So in order to process a if statement, it uses a simple rule, though of course the rule itself is not given here. But what that rule does is that if it modifies the state information about this variable x like this, it generates, after processing this particular thing, it now generates that x after s1 will be whatever was all that information, a program path that was existing. Now c1 is true. If that is the case, it will be equal to 2. Okay. If c1 is false, then it will be equal to 5. So this is the specific state information that it derives. Okay, so then the check agent actually, as I told you, takes the analysis specification, source code, control flow, static trace tuples, all of them, and then does this. So what it does is to pass this analysis specification and execute the SPARQL queries that are mentioned in that. So remember that the execute specification has certain SPARQL queries. So obtain the program points where the analysis has to be performed, and then query the triples, the knowledge base triples, for the values or constraints on variables at those program points, and then check translate those analysis specifications into specific constraints on variables so that an SMT solver can actually be used. So for example, yeah, let me show, we use a Z3 solver here. Okay. So for example, we want to do a divide by zero check. So all the division operations are safe or not. Okay, so this is the situation where a possible divide by zero bug can actually occur. Okay, so now the consolidated program triples are given to the check agent, and the check agent actually generates this entire set of conditions. And if these conditions are satisfied, then it is kind of shows that there is a potential bug here. And in fact, if you give this condition to the SMT solver, it will say that yes, they together can be satisfied. Okay, so what this is saying is that, yeah, so this IP1 minus this T should be equal to 0 is what this analysis specification is saying. In order for divide by 0 to occur, this should be 0, right? So then the known situation about IP1 and T are all used in order to extract the conditions that are satisfied by these things. So, okay. So since the size is what is used as a variable to assign value to T. So so all that will come into picture here, and then all these conditions together will indicate that it's possible for this IP1 minus T to become 0. Okay. So that then kind of indicates that there's a potential bug at this particular point. Okay, so let me kind of stop more or less here, because I think I'm almost running out of time. So let me take some questions, because see, the rest of the thing is to kind of to actually illustrate that the entire system is working well, and we did this on certain benchmark data sets, etc. Let me skip this stream analysis, etc. Divide by zero analysis, for example. Clang was taking certain time, whereas Opal check agent will finish this. So one of the main advantages that you get while using Opal is that we can reuse the generated knowledge in program in further analysis, etc. So we are able to do better. So the whole point is not about the performance alone. It is the ability that you are able to convert this entire knowledge into the framework of ontologies, so that the potential for future applications is much higher. For example, if you in order to do a same kind of canonical loop analysis, etc., people have to use several lines of code, whereas if it is in Opal, the specification is very compact, and then you can give short specifications as to what is to be done. Okay, so with that, let me kind of conclude here, saying that Opal is a framework using which we're able to convert a lot of information into semantic model about programs, and then it has potential that it can be used further for doing a lot more analysis. Okay, so with that, let me take on a few questions that we have